Hey there! Welcome to the 9th day of December 2016. I'm just pulling out of Toys R Us, buying a couple of not Christmas gifts, but birthday gifts for the extended family. It happens to be my niece and nephew's birthdays this last month, and my brother's birthday this month, my daughter's birthday last month, so we're having a big party for the whole extended clan tomorrow, so gotta get gifts for everyone. Actually, I took the day off from work today. Had to do pick my wife's car to the shop, but got all that taken care of, so now I can take care of this. So let's get into it. Let's do the Good Life meditation for today. Adding a new piece, kind of adding it. Formally, I've mentioned it several times, but I'm formally adding it in, and that's the component of sin. It was a part before down in, I think it's the principle 12, sin and damnation, and I've decided to flesh that out a little bit, and I'm not going to give it its own principle. I'm going to keep it as, cohabitating with damnation. I like that. I like the idea of sin cohabitating with damnation, because in a secular view, as opposed to a religious view, in a secular view, there is no afterlife for the damnation to take place. It takes place in the here and now. So the sin, you perform the sin now, and you get the damnation as an immediate consequence. So let me just explain it a little bit, and then I'll jump into the whole thing. So the sin in my secular worldview all relates around the first sub-principle of falsity. Falsity, I think that's a Middle English word. Don't use that a lot, contemporary English, but it refers to the act of being false in any way whatsoever. And in particular, I ascribe that to being false with regard to not living according to your own nature. So when you can examine your own nature, this activity of looking at the nature of things, you can apply that instrument to yourself, uncover what your own nature is, and attempt to live in accordance with that. And you'll live a better life if you do. Now, of course, that has to be tempered with the reality that we're social animals. So we have to temper the execution of our nature in accordance with the prescriptions and of our social, the rules and laws of our society, and the morals and mores of our society. Also, we need to keep those within lane lines of virtue, keep them constrained there. So you can't just if your nature is to be a criminal or a doer of dastardly deeds, you can't live according to that nature and still be a social, just, and virtuous individual, per my own descriptions. But what else am I going to do? So you can come up with your own definitions of virtue if you want, but according to mine, you can't do it. So, but that prescription only extends as far as my sphere of my life. So the other parts of sin, another sin, which is, they're all just variations on falsity. Another sin would be the sin of credulity, which is, I see a siren. Credulity being the willingness to believe too easily. I better stop. Awkward place to stop. I couldn't stop very easily. Sorry. Who am I apologizing to? So, had that happen with my student at the last week of the driving school. My student encountered that and was going to pull right out in front of everybody in the fire truck, and I had to stop the brakes. Kept him out of that. So I'll stay in this lane. So anyway, another one. So back on it. Sin. One of the components of sin in my secular view of the world is falsity. The condition of being false. Another one is credulity, the over-eagerness and willingness to believe. Another is I had to write them down. Haven't got a good memory. Superstition is another one. I think that one's for obvious reasons, right? There's not a lot of good value in superstitious belief, because the very nature, the name itself speaks to the falsity of it. Another is, and finally we have dogma. And dogma, of course, is the is prescriptions of, how do you describe it? Dogma is codes, regulations, prescriptions that should be followed by virtue of authority, by virtue of history, by virtue of the very fact of what they are, and that runs totally afoul of a life lived according to reason. So we would any code that requires allegiance by virtue of the say-so is automatically held in high question. It's highly questionable. So I got to figure this freeway out. So there you go. So and then linked deep in there, back in the credulity part. There's my first, which I guess would kind of be a sub principle, sub principle, which is this: you have with sin. The sub principle then is of sin. One of them is credulity. And then another sub-principle of that is faith, which really I thought deserves its own darn principle as a sin. But I'm gonna keep it there because the taxonomy works, the way it nestles nicely. It fits just like a scarab beetle fits nicely within the order of insects is Coleoptera within the family, and then the hierarchy. Although the funny thing is that well, I guess not. I was going to say faith is such a great offender of reason, but it's small pittance in comparison to credulity itself. Yeah, it really does belong as a sub one. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of figuring all this out as I go along. Hopefully I'll be able to recall that when I get on with it. So here we go. Let's do this. The path of wildness. No, the good life. One, the affirmation of human and civil rights. Human beings have particular rights that are endowed unto them by virtue of their society. These are not God-given rights. There are societal and human applied rights, and that's why they're subject to be imperfect, and we have to work on them. We also apply rights to the groups within the society. I'm going to work on those. I'm going to I will respect them and work to change them when I see that there are problems and help to enforce them. Moving on. I have to go fast. Really have to go fast today because I don't have much time. I have to go pick up something to give it to my daughter at school. One is here we go. The principles. 14. First, the atomic principle. Everything is bits and pieces. I'm really going to go through this almost by rote. Okay, this is going to be my really see if I can keep it to the line. Okay, here we go. Atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, matter flowing and changing. So too you and I. What we are today, our composition today, will very soon melt away and become something else. 2, the principle of nature and the sub-principles of paradigm and firmware. Nature, everything in the universe has a particular nature, and it's worthwhile to look at that nature and understand it so that we can make sense of the world. I always pick something out. Let's pick out the nature of a steak. The steak is the nature of a steak, like you eat. It's a piece of meat. It's cooked up. It's ready to eat. It has a sizzle. It has a flavor, and it's a texture. And yum, yum, yum. If you're that type of guy, or gal. But on the flip side, it's also just the piece of the musculature of a cow that once was a living bovine pursuing its own objectives and agenda upon the world, but now it was executed probably with a pile of with a big stabbing projectile thrust through the brain case to kill it. It probably suffered some panic and anxiety as it was walked up onto the killing stage, and then was butchered in just a slaughterhouse of horror, and to be served upon our plate, and to sit there in its want to decompose, but we arrest it in stage through refrigeration, rid of any pests that may be living inside, any parasites through cookery. Is that a word? Am I going fast? No. Okay. Here we go. Can I keep with it? So the purpose of that, though, to lay it out in its bare essence there, is to reveal it for what it really is. Previously when I talked about the nature of things, I would just talk about kind of what they were. I also want to unpack their their essence to get to that, because that is what really lays out the foundation. I can't wait to do that to myself. What terrible reality, simple reality, but a compelling reality lies below the just me. Okay, here we go. A lot of this is very distasteful. I think my videos are indeed becoming more distasteful every iteration, and that's because I'm focusing them more on the distasteful part of life that we can't escape. It's the thing that compels us to seek happiness in spite of the doom and gloom of the death sentence we're all hanging under, and the disillusion to chaos and entropy that's occurring all around us. So, boy, I'm not moving fast. Here we just keep at it. So, paradigm is a combination of the nature of something as well as its, I want to say, instead of its perspective necessarily, its motive. What it is endeavoring to do. You combine those together, you have perspective, and everything has a different perspective, but perspective only applies to living organisms. Next is firmware or mandate is the biological imperative that exists within our genes in terms of, and is executed by way of our instincts. Watch out, because it'll force you into a particular way of life. You don't necessarily have to buy that. You have a little bit of a war, going on between the cognitive higher brains and the lower brain. Pardon me. So moving on now to maturity, which is a process of being both experienced and in the right lane, or the left lane in this case, both experienced and capable of utilizing that experience. And there's two sub-principles there: wisdom and fortitude. Wisdom is the thing that you gain through the experience of life that gives way to, that promotes, promotes maturity. And fortitude is what you can hang on to and use to push through, even when your wisdom fails and you wind up in a bad situation. You can behave in a mature manner. Next is the social principle and two sub-principles. I remember these. So those are, it's up there on the screen, right over there. One is justice, and the other is, what is it? I remembered it. It was right there, and then it just disappeared. It's all remembered. I forgot it 2 days ago, too. Anyway, social principles. Human beings are social animals. We need one another to survive. Our best ends are social ends, and social good is a refined, distilled form of good. Justice is a component of society, and it's the result of balancing interests, and especially competing or conflicting interests within society. There's one more, and it's right up there on the screen, but I just can't quite remember what it is. I'll get it one of these days. The next one is temperance, and the sub-principle of suffering. Temperance is the ability to control our consumption of goods, of activities, services, of course, activities, and emotions. Suffering is what happens. We can use our temperance to control our expression of things like emotion, or we won't eat too much cake. But that doesn't mean we're not going to suffer a little bit for the fact that we want that extra slice of cake, or that we want to. The passion inside that wants to break out. That's a fact. And so suffering is something you kind of have to live with, and despite the fact, and I have no great solution to that. I think the Buddhists do, in a way, where they kind of distance themselves from the world, in a way, from the feelings of the world. Is that right? From the interest of the world, which doesn't quite sit well with me. I'd rather actually use temperance and have those feelings. Use temperance to control and have a more mature reaction to the world. And nevertheless recognize the importance and the fact of suffering. Next is the agency and indifference, and the sub-principle of ×2 for the indifference. There's two types. Agency is life, and anything that's alive is an agent, and the artifacts of agency are anything that they create. Indifference is what's left when you extract out all the agency and the artifacts of agency, and you're left with the cold, bleak, hostile, maybe. No, not hostile. That implies agency. cold, bleak indifference of the universe. It's the surface of Mercury. It's the emptiness of interstellar space. It's the quiet of an empty desert, devoid of almost all life. And it's kind of fearful. So watch out, because we humans are wont to create gods to fill the void and to apply agency and agency's motive wherever the indifference might threaten to appear, even in our hearts. Well, there is nothing here up here. Duh. So next is best seat in the house, right here, right now. This life I'm living right now. It's simply a not wanting to want to be anyone else, or not want to do anything else, or not want to be in any other situation, but be all right just where I am, in the here and now, all the while striving. It sounds like it's a paradox, being okay with where I am now while striving for something better. So you can have your cake and eat it too. Next is reason, the governing faculty, the ability to make sense of the world through observation. You can come up with arguments which yield results or predictions of results, and we measure those results. If they came true, then maybe we're onto something. Stick with it, refine it, watch out. If not, then better take some more measurements, make some better arguments. Next is virtue and the sub-principle of purpose. Without God, the only purpose in the world is for us is to get our genes into the next generation. The rest is up to us. So it's important that we develop good, sound purpose in the world. And I recommend that the most best purpose that you can come up with is to live a virtuous life, whereas virtue is defined as the objective improvement of well-being. We want to counter the suffering in the world. We want to get away from, as Sam Harris would say, the most amount of suffering for everybody in the world. That's the extreme place we want to get away from. Anything that takes us away from that towards less suffering and then better improvement for as many as possible. That's the aim of virtue. That is the project of virtue. Next is I did that. So next is the path of wildness. Yes. Which is a way of getting unstuck from a situation in life. You simply take the facts you've got. Can I get in here? You take the facts you've got, think about it as much time as you've got, and don't spend too much time that you can spend your whole life mulling it over. And then when you have made that your best estimation, if you still need a nudge, then use your gut and just go for it. Ready to make a mistake, but ready to move forward, because there's a lot to be said for just the process of moving forward. Next is, here we go, getting into our little trifecta there. One leads to another. It's the 1, 2, 3. I didn't order them this way. They just kind of came out this way. I did order them this way, but I didn't intend it for this reason. Here we go. First is sin and damnation, with all the little sub-principles of sin, which, as I said before, are credulity, also faith, so superstition, dogma, and falsity. So a sin is basically adhering to any of the things I just said there. Living a false life, not living according to your nature, assuming that nature is a social and virtuous one, and subscribing to dogma, living. What am I doing here? I'm in the wrong parking lot. Subscribing to dogma and abiding superstition. These things get you into a position of where you're going to suffer, and that's where the damnation comes in. You don't have to wait till you're dead. You can enjoy damnation now. But good news is that it's not forever. No eternal damnation in this secular worldview. It's all over when you're done. And that leads to the final bit, oblivion. Sorry, all three of them just come together. Should really wrap those things into one. Oblivion is the what's left. Here we got a parking spot. Oblivion is what's left. Oh, there's one there too. When there's nothing left. When your life is over. That guy's got a hard hat under there. Oblivion. And the thing about oblivion that's interesting is that the stuff that you may have been waiting for, like they're gonna get theirs in the next life. Those people that are deserving of punishment, justice. Hitler's gonna get it in the next life. That guy that cut me off, well, he'll get his. He won't. The only way I'll get it now is in the here and now, through the application of justice. Now, don't take things into your own hand. Part of this whole thing is being able to weather the fact of injustice at times, not to tolerate it, but to weather it while seeking it at the same time. It's that best seat in the house type of deal while pursuing justice. So, but you get that. And another thing is you're not going to see any of these people in the afterlife on this worldview. There is no afterlife. You know, when we're dead, we're dead. So, and also everything that you've got, everything that you did, all your works are going to go with you too. They will rot away, including your genetic code will be dissolved into the human gene, the collective human genome within 7 generations. So even if you have 25 kids, 7 generations later, you might as well have been a stranger from another world, another part of the country at least, another part of the world. From this world, a stranger from this world. Okay, keeping on, let's wrap this up. So, hey, I just get all 3 of those. Now, last principle is willful time management, making an effort to consciously make good use of the time that we have to us. So I do that through 2 things. One is my today's thought plan, and 2, my today's action plan. The today's thought plan is always the same. It's 4 things. 1, to collect my thoughts before dawn. I'm an early riser. I'm always up before dawn, and I'm always thinking. It's my best time to think. 2, compose my thoughts over lunch. 3, record them over dinner. 4, die before bedtime. I know that 4 isn't a thought, but it just fits so nice. You know, get up in the morning, do a little thinking, do a little writing, do a little recording, and then you check out. And if you know you're checking out at the end, then you better take it seriously in the chance you got. That's so good. Partially because I know this will be my last cup of coffee. So now today's action plan. Well, I'm halfway through the day. So today's action plan was to 1, get up, assess the situation with my wife's car, take care of that with the dealership. Go on from there. I'm taking care of buying gifts for the kiddos. Now I'm going to get stuff ready for go grocery shopping, get some stuff for that. Then I got to take care of other things. I need to go get some stuff for work, some clothes. I did take the day off, so that's all cool. And that's that. And then today's rotten day forecast. It's going to be a really bad day. My daughter's going to die today. My wife's going to die today. The dog's going to die. I know this is the hardest thing to do, especially when I start saying it so matter-of-factly, because I know that people really are dying today and right now. And I don't want it to sound like I'm flippant with regard to that, or I don't care. It's not that. This is an exercise to bring these potentialities right up to my head. Not to stare at them so that they gloom me down, but to shake me up. And when my daughter, when she texted me earlier, to really, she did, because I have to bring her something to school, to really give it my attention. When I get home at night and I sit across from the table from them, I'm not actually thinking they're going to die tonight, but I am thinking, wow, look at this. I've got this moment. My wife is here. My daughter is here. She's still my little girl. She's still at home. You know, and really just soak it up. And it really does have that very compound effect. And I know that I've received messages from people who were taking it the other way, that I'm somehow depressed. And, you know, they keep telling me to cheer up. I don't know how to get across that that's not what this is about. This is not a pity party. This is a reality party. Finally, the human hashtags. Hashtag objective, hashtag honest, hashtag just, hashtag reasonable, hashtag social. And I know there's more. Oh, hashtag discreet. Yes, discreet's very important. And with that, I'm going to wrap up 24 minutes in. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you have a really, really wonderful day and a really good life. Take care.